who all is here? We've got Dan and Chris and Eric, and Tara's here, and Tom, John, Robert, Jeff. Anybody else here? Okay. All right, sorry to keep you guys waiting. Good morning. Okay. What I'm bringing up here is Eric's last modification, okay? And there was some discussion when this first went out from Jeff. And Jeff, you did a great job here. I really like the idea of trying to eliminate the drawing, and I would definitely be in favor of that. I did hear some stuff about this line here, shall meet guard manufacturer's anchorage requirements. And some could accept possibly eliminating manufacturers. Some didn't like it at all. I know I don't care for it all. And so I'm suggesting that we here, I've deleted that just for the sake of a place to start this conversation. And my intent or reason, I should say, for this is to present an argument where I would consider this a section in the code that deals with framing, not with attachments to the framing. At least in this section where we're talking about floor framing, I'm looking at this the guard anchorage as being another issue that would be solved somewhere else if it needs to be solved. We kind of got beyond the anchorage in the very beginning and decided to generalize on how we could strengthen the floor system in the advent of any of the most common, at least currently used hardware for post anchorage, including lags and just simple lags into the side, could be used. And that's what we've considered. We've considered the loads that would be applied to this. And I don't think this is necessary. So with that said, Jeff, you felt this was important in the beginning. I'm just wondering if you've been swayed at all by my argument here.
So my concern is that you've got some known connection types that are maybe not compatible with some of the systems that we've got proposed as options here. For example, something that puts a lag screw down the center of that and it goes right between those two laminations of a built-up beam. You're not going to get the capacity that you think you're going to get. You've given somebody the illusion of safety, but you haven't given them safety. And so I think, my intent here is to call out to the builder at the time this is doing that they need to coordinate a little bit with the stair guard manufacturer to make sure that whatever system that they're doing is compatible. It's not a one size fits all. You do this and you're safe. So it doesn't do any good to build and strengthen the floor if the guard itself can't transfer the load to the floor. Either the guard or the anchorage of that guard to the floor. So that's my intent, is to call it out so a builder is aware that this is an issue that they need to do some coordination with somebody.
Well, isn't that a given regardless of what hardware you use? I mean,
I would say based on the history of this, I would say it's not a given, because what I've heard on this call is that the stair manufacturer shows up now and has nothing there to work with. So it sounds to me like there's no coordination between the stair, the guard manufacturer, the guard installer, and the builder right now.
Hmm. I'm not sure that this is where we get that kind of coordination, though.
Dave, let me chime in here a second. It's Tom.
Okay,
Jeff, here's my question for you. By pointing out guard manufacturers' anchorage requirements, my concern is, and being someone who works mainly in higher end fastening methodology, okay, and not some of the others who are building standardized product. We've always got caught in a catch-22 with guard manufacturers' anchorage requirements, because unless it's a pre-manufactured company making the actual attachment, the methodology for the anchorage is always done in the back sense of, okay, what's there and what do we need to do? If we leave manufacturers' anchorage requirements in there, in this section, the concern is not on the contractor as much as it is for us on the inspector now requiring a engineering reviewed fastening method at the time of framing inspection for inspection. Okay. It's sort of a catch-22. Yes, I agree that there should be an anchorage methodology. And in a higher end market, we're always doing them, even though we're not required to submit engineering documentation. And on the pre-manufactured point, are we now pushing them into having to collect that data for the inspector to verify that it's correct prior to, rather than designing to what's there? I hope Dave, you can chime in on where I'm going with that.
yeah, I think one of the main reasons that really cinches this for me is I think that may cause this whole thing to fail, because people are going to realize that they can't coordinate that in enforcement. And designers are going to say they can't coordinate that in enforcement. I think by leaving it out of there, there is a fail-safe in that whoever installs that guard has got to meet the required loads that are well within the code. I think that putting this in there, I can see your point, Jeff, and I understand it completely, but I'm thinking that if you put this in there, it's not going to get enforced anyway. So to jeopardize what this whole thing could do, I just have difficulty with it, because I really think that could be a sore spot, a big argument at the hearing.
David, I think I can satisfy both concerns if you give me a second.
Who's speaking?
It's Robert.
Oh, I didn't see you on the call. Okay, Robert.
If you switch 502.11.1 and 502.11.2, and you call out, if you use the drawing or not in the drawing, and you call out structural timber or 2x10, put the structural timber first, leave the LVL and PSL at a engineer's discretion, that solves the total issue all the way around, because it takes away the gap between the two boards. It gives the solid edge that's needed for all the different fasteners, and the question goes away, because we know we have enough surface to hit the top of that plate with surface mounted and with side mounted. So that meets both Tom's requirement and Jeff's requirement, and dump it onto an engineer. This way the engineers through the years can design something different, and we're still not bogged down in the code issue as one of my factors. Does that make sense? Did I explain it right?
Well, if you just reverse those, it doesn't matter what order they appear in as far as the code goes.
No, I'm
Just
talking about,
Just reversing, if you make 11.2, 11.1, and 11.1, 11.2, just reversing their order of appearance is not gonna change anything.
well,
You're gonna
that
have to
makes-
change some text there somehow.
yeah, you're gonna have to change some text. And I sent in some stuff. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at it, because you got two dimensions there, which is going to cause a problem for the stair builders anyway, for the width of the beam on both 11.1 and 11.2. But if you default the laminated beam as a primary, and then go with the vertical laminated, the two 2x10s, as a second option, as a second part of that statement, then put the LVL and the SPL in the engineer's discretion. And that shifts the load back to the engineer design. It takes the load off the stair builder, and it takes the load off the floor manufacturers, because now they know exactly which way they got to go. And then the framers, of course, they're going to install whatever's sent out to the job, and they got shop drawings to back it up. So that's the way I see it. Just to,
So to clarify, you're proposing that there's really two options. One is to have what's in 11.2, and the other is to have it designed by an engineer.
11,
Right now, as it's proposed, there are three options, right? So one option is to have it designed by an engineer. Option two is what's in 11.1, which says you line the posts up with blocking or joists. And you can have a member that's 3 inches wide. And then 11.2 says that you don't have to line your posts up with the blocking or joist, but you have to have a larger solid member. So right now there's three options in here. Am I understanding that you're proposing that there's only two options? You either engineer it or you use the big solid member?
well, the solid member should be the first choice. And then the second choice should be the 2x10 material. And then the third choice should be at an engineer's discretion, because the PSL has issues with the small face, penetrating the small face for surface mount. And it's in the manufacturer's paperwork about that. LVL I couldn't find, but in years in practice, we've never attached through the LVL through the small surface. We've always attached through the wide surface. That's where the strength is. So yeah, your verbiage will have to change just slightly, but I think the fix like that would give the people the option of either going with the larger beam or the 2x10, or go through an engineer, which all you flooring guys are all engineers anyways. Flooring systems, you all engineer your own stuff anyhow, certify it, weight it, whatever, and then send it out with a shop drawing. So it solves both issues. We won't hit the gap between the two boards. We won't hit the soft wood that's in the narrow face of the LVL and the PSL without an engineer's approval. Then the engineering takes on the liability instead of dumping it on the stair builder, who has no clue what's going on with floors and LVLs and PSLs. That's my point. I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't explain well. I'm sorry.
Robert, basically you're saying there would just be two options, the solid and an engineered solution. That's what you're saying.
Well, that's basically what we're saying here is a solid or an engineered solution. We just have
No,
different
No,
engineers.
that's not what we're saying. And there is no first, second, or third choices. There's three options. You can choose any. Nothing takes priority here. The only
Okay.
way that what you're saying, the only way to do that I can see within the code would be to present the one option and then provide exceptions for it.
Basically, that's kind of what I'm saying. As I said, I don't
Well,
explain myself.
Robert,
so-
we've all discussed the fact that the singular option that you feel is the right way, that's solid, or the only way, we've all discussed that there needs to be other options in order to get this passed. It's got to receive it's got to be accepted by the entire building community. And the entire building community there's an advantage here to using the materials that are most commonly used, that are readily available. They can, to make a complete switch to an entirely different system without any other options is not going to be appreciated by NAHB, and it will die for sure. We have to be open-minded enough to present options. That's what I've learned in code development. I mean, if somebody else has learned something else, or they feel that we can present the one option of solid.
Dave, this is Tom chiming in. Robert, it's a non-starter out of the gate in that direction. We might as well just cut this meeting and all disappear, because it's not even worth the time to invest in doing it that way, because it won't fly. And the only people here, I'm not sure, besides myself and Dave, that have sat through hearings for decades, going back to the mid-90s for me, okay? It's a game. It's bottom line, people. It's a game. You have to play the game. It's politics. And a singular direction is not going to pass. There's just too many walls. It'll die in committee, and you'll never get it past the final action hearings. The methodology here and Jeff's point are extremely valid. The issue becomes, do we want to add an additional criteria here in floor framing, a pointer, or nothing? And a pointer would push it to something like going over to R3015 for the load requirements for mounting of some sort. So I understand Jeff's point, and I agree with Jeff's point, but at the same time, I know we're also going to create a circular issue that I'm not sure. I can just hear the committee right now. Why are we designing a methodology here for Anchorage in the floor framing section when guards are done over in 312 and the loads are done in 3015.5 table? So I've been through it enough to know it's going to be a ping pong effect, which is why I kind of brought up to Dave that I'm not sure if there's a way around it, that the shall meet guard manufacturing Anchorage requirements belongs here necessarily. Okay, because it's already spelled out over in the loads, and Jeff is correct that without it in there, the builder is just going to blow right by it. The designer is just going to blow right by it. But do we get it in the code and then fine tune it? Or do we try to get it pushed in with it and go dead? That's the way I see it. Dave, Jeff, anybody?
Eric, I know you like this. Do you have anything to say in regards to this phrase?
I mean, I understand the arguments from both sides, and not with the track record that you guys have, Tom and Dave, sitting through these things, but based on the last couple of times trying to get anything through associated to guards, I know that it's like putting a curse on something to mention it. But I don't know if there's one of the things I was thinking while you guys were talking, it might not fit in the floor framing portion. Would it help get things going the way that Jeff is interested in, to just have a pointer to section 3 where the guard information is here? That would be, in a world of compromise, if we're not talking about the manufacturer's anchorage requirements, we have some nod that there's something from the guard loads in 3 that is forcing us to create this section. And instead of that deletion there, you have some reference to the guard loads associated from the table, so that there's an understanding that, oh, there's something else that's going on here that needs to be coordinated, but I at least need to build the floor framing this way. I don't know if that's something worth digging into, instead of pointing to manufacturers, but just saying, we know that this stuff is over there in chapter 3. We got to deal with it. Here's how to frame to deal with it. Make sure it's coordinated.
Is it, so a pointer to 301.5, how might that be constructed here? How might we include that? What do you think about that, Jeff?
I think it's fine. I think it accomplishes the same thing, but I think you're going to have difficulty getting that past the home builders, because they're going to point to and say, here says you had to build the floor, but you still need to engineer the guard. And so I don't know fully how your industry works, but if this was engineered wood products, we would have a code report that gives the details, that says this is how you attach it, this is the minimum attachment for our product. And so you'd have an ESR report, a code report to go look at and say, this is how you do it. I don't know if that's the way it's done in your industry. And that's what I would envision, is that, hey, whoever's making the hardware, the guard or whatever, somebody's got to have figured out what works in this, because not everything is going to work just by default with this framing. And so somebody needs to take responsibility for that, whether it's an engineer who's custom designing something, if it's the guard manufacturer, and I use that term loosely because I don't know the difference between the people who are making the wood components or metal components and the anchorage type things, but somebody there needs to have evaluated something and verified that it works, and give kind of those limits. And if they give a detail that says, yeah, this is how you do it with our system, if you have a double 2x member, this is what you need to do. If you have a glulam member, then this is what you need to do. There's got to be some minimums there. So it's really just trying to call attention to it. If you want to point to the loads, I think that's going to be a worse to try and get something passed, because then it looks like every single thing needs to be designed by an engineer at the time of application, or engineer for every project. And so, like I said, that's where I was going with manufacturers' anchorage requirements. That in our industry, that's how we would address it. Is we would provide the details for this is how our products can be used. So if you want to get rid of the word manufacturers, I don't have a problem with that. But I still think there should be something that points out that this isn't going to solve all your problems just by putting these members here. You still have to get the load into those members. Otherwise, you may as well have just done none of this.
Can I weigh in real quick?
Please do.
As a manufacturer of hardware for making connections in the construction industry, we do take on that responsibility but we're not the guard manufacturer. We do the hardware and we do provide instructions on how to make that happen. But that's our responsibility, and we do take on that responsibility, and we have insurance, and we can be sued, and we can't make it our job as a committee to go out and figure out what, if everybody is, if their systems are strong enough. We're not messing with the load requirement for the guards at all. And without this in there, it does not in any way, shape, or form take away from those requirements. I understand that you have some concerns, and those are very valid, of are we ultimately getting the load resistance that we need? But we're not talking about any specific methodology for installing Nuapos. We're just trying to get a base there that it can be done. And while we may determine ourselves that we don't think that this methodology that's out there really works, or that methodology or that piece of hardware, that's not our job. I think that we've decided that we're not, as a committee here, we're not going to be responsible for that part, because that's an impossible task for us to take on, I think. I was the one that originally brought up concerns, and those concerns weren't addressed today, which is we're calling out, we're making code something that is, okay, the guard manufacturer's anchorage requirements. So we're making some third party responsible and an authority over what code is, but we don't even know what that manufacturer or who that is. And is it the guy that's making the parts? Is it the guy that's installing them? Is it the guy that's building the railing system and then has a subcontractor go out and install them? Is it the manufacturer of the hardware? It's just ambiguous to me. I thought that your suggestion of taking the word manufacturers out of there was a great suggestion, and it did in fact change it quite a bit. I would still opt, it would be just my preference to not have it in there, but I'm only one of many here. That's all.
Dave, if I can chime in for a minute.
Sure.
And I apologize, I've missed a couple of the meetings, so if I get redundant, please stop me. So the initial intent of all this was to address something that, what was her name, Renda? The lady in Texas?
Yes.
That.
Renda.
Yeah, okay. So to address this framing, we're not going to be able to address it in the code to meet each and every manufacturer's requirements. That's going to be an impossible task. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the intent of this is to try to create a solid and sound framing system that will accommodate, most common guards. So if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, all right, this type of framing will accommodate just about every guard that's out there that's usual, but not everything. And ultimately, if let's say, how many of these places know exactly what the guard's going to be when the framing is done? I have that luxury. I design all that in from the get-go, but I realize that is a rare exception. So isn't the intent here to come up with something that will cover most of the bases, understanding that it's going to be impossible to cover all the bases? And what happens on remodels? So let's say we put this in shall meet manufacturer's anchorage requirements, and then you do a remodeling project and you take out the glass rail and you put in something else. Well, you know, the person that's doing that job, it's their responsibility to make sure that, you know, there's proper anchoring. I mean, we can't take away responsibility from everybody ultimately, but to keep this as simple as possible with the intent that while we're all here, I mean, the intent is, you know, let's have something solid around here so that whatever guard we put on, most of it will be supported by what we're talking about. And I understand that the need to steer it back to the manufacturer, you know, but I'm trying to think of, you know, when Brenda brought all this stuff up in Texas, you know, I mean, they're putting these buildings up and they don't know until halfway or 3/4 of the way through the project what guard system is going to be installed there. So to clarify all that, you know, designing this with what we've talked about will cover the biggest majority of it. And then, you know, if it comes into something special, that would be treated in the, what do you talk about, the 301, where, you know, they're calling for the, you know, shall meet the guard manufacturer's anchorage requirements. Is that not already addressed in some other area of the code? I mean, does it, I understand the need for it, but I agree with some of the other comments. I think this is a no-go to get this through the code. I'm trying to put myself in a neutral position, and I'm reading this and I'm thinking, as a builder, well, I'm going to back away from this 100% because I have no idea what kind of guard is going to go in. You know, we got to get these things up out of the ground and get them framed. And, you know, we'll let the designers figure out what the guards are. So I can't comply to this. That's my line of thinking on this. Anyway.
I don't think this adds any degree of safety. The onus is still on the person that selects the hardware and installs it. It's still there. You know, the guard has to meet all the other requirements of the code. To answer John's question, is there a particular portion in the code that tells you specifically, gives specific information about guard anchorage? No. It's just a performance code. It says, you know, that the guard needs to be able to transfer the load to the structure. What this section does is provide a structure that can, if the attachment is chosen properly, okay, so that's another job. If the attachment or connection method is chosen and performed correctly, if the guard members to which it attaches the posts or the balustrade or the glass or the whatever, okay, if all of that stuff meets the code, then you've got a guard. But all this deals with, it doesn't deal with the specific attachment. It doesn't deal with whether there's posts there or not. It doesn't deal with the structure of the guard or how the rail is connected to the posts, if there are posts, or how the rail is connected to the infill, or how the infill is connected to the connection. It doesn't deal with any of that, you know. So to take one small piece of that whole guard system, the connection, well, not a small piece, it's a big deal. I don't mean to minimize it, but to add that in here you know, you could say, gee, where does it stop? You know, and are we dealing with the chicken or the egg here? You know? So I've said enough. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think you put that really well, Coop. And to simplify that, when you said that it's still going to be the guy that's installing that, it's still his responsibility to choose the hardware. And we've all seen some really weird things out on job sites. I've seen it where they'll take a newel post, they'll set it on the ground, and they'll toenail it 4 times and walk away, and it's done. By coming up with this code, we didn't say that that is okay to do that, to just toenail your post in. That's still their responsibility. And the more that we talk about it, the more I think that it would not be well positioned to have that language here.
Yeah, so I didn't want to derail everything, and I know there's probably other things to talk about. So, you know, I'm fine if y'all want to go ahead without that language. So I don't think we need to. You know, I'm not going to argue against all of y'all. You know, but you know, I think we can move on and see if there's anything else that's worth discussing.
Well, I was just going to throw in there, I guess technically as a guard manufacturer, LJ Smith, I'm sure the other stair companies out there don't have any published anchorage requirements. And, you know, after discussion last week, I called 4 of the largest installation companies, 2 in California, 1 in Arizona, 1 in Nevada, talked to their technical guys. And I think a lot of it comes down to there's only one municipality here in California that on the blueprints actually has the hardware. Everybody else gets the blueprints. And yes, the guards are designed, the posts are laid out, everything's laid out, but there are no attachment methods on the prints themselves. That's left up to the installation companies. And I think like Dave, like you were saying, and Dan, you know, to do their due diligence to use the correct fasteners to get our loads. So I know we can drop it, Jeff, but like I said, when I saw that and it says guard manufacturer, and again, me being a guard manufacturer, we don't have any, published requirements. So just wanted to toss that out there before we, I felt like we might get penned into a corner having to come up with anchorage requirements to make this pass.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for your input here. I don't feel quite so strongly about where it's been stricken below, where it says trusses and I-joists are permitted as edge framing members supporting guards except where the effects of the guard loads and attachment are specifically considered in the design of the edge member. So now you're going to design a specific edge member. I can see more of a reason to leave and attachment in there. Any discussion on that? I struck it because it was stricken above. And then I started looking at it. Is this a different situation? You're designing something specific. So do you need to include it here?
I think it should be included. You've got somebody designing, you want to make sure, I'm a manufacturer of an I-joist and somebody's going to try and use I-joist to support this. I want them to consider the attachment as well, because it's not obvious how you do that to a truss or whatever. You can't just design the member in isolation.
I would agree.
Leaving it in too.
I think it's important to leave it there.
Okay. Okay. All right, Jeff, you pointed out the 24-inch was just I don't think you used the word arbitrary, but you did mention something.
Yeah, there's a placeholder, just threw it in
Yeah.
there.
I know we had talked about distances of 13 and 20 inches. But I think the 24 inches might have come from the distance that the piece of sheathing had to be at least 24 inches, right? I think is what
Yeah,
we
that's-
had determined.
That's what we talked about, and keep in mind, I'm measuring from the edge, not from the inside face of that outside member, so with the 3-inch member, that's 21 inches from the member, so we're measuring from different points, I think, if you were to look at your drawing. But yeah, it's negotiable, and I'm sure Eric can work out the math on what that needs to be, but
Yeah, I added some I spent a little more time in option 2 because that was the one without drawings. And so that's
Yeah.
where I gave like in the comments on the side, if we wanted to stay with that 1 bay of blocking, that would give us sort of a 13-inch dimension. I just put those comments over those are comments in the margins for what that might look like. We can say what the load is, the 500 pounds, or we can give them the nailing, because it's I ran some more careful numbers on it, and it comes out that it's fairly simple it's simpler for attaching the blocking. I managed to get the load small enough to get rid of those clips and just do it with nails. And so that would be, how if we want to not have details, we can pick a dimension anywhere between 13 and 24 and make the nails work. You get 13 inches, you need 6 nails. That's like 6 toenails or 6 end nails in the blocking, which is quite a few in a 2x10. But you could get that to work if you could do it without splitting the wood. If you push it up to the 24 inches, which means multiple bays when you're in the parallel construction, it's much more reasonable at 4 inches. But I think I would lean towards the one, a dimension that works for both parallel and perpendicular construction, and just have the extra nails there. In a detail in a commentary or in a later publication, it's very easy to just double up the blocking and get the nails to work, and give you plenty, give you more real estate for the additional nails, and you're really only affecting 1 bay of parallel construction, and it's a pretty short, it's an easy thing to do in the perpendicular construction.
Okay, I'm a little confused. So Eric, are you suggesting that we go with a different dimension than the 24?
Well, I left it at 24 as for discussion.
Okay,
I'm suggesting that we think about making that dimension 16, because that would give us the 13-inch dimension that we had previously been working with, and using the more nails. What I did in option 2 was created this roll bracing section in order to help. I hope, Jeff, I hope it helped. I created that section because we needed the roll bracing for both the heavy member and when we need to install blocking to align with the post. And so because that's the same roll bracing, regardless of which option you use, the heavy edge member or the first option in 502.11.1, 502.11.2, both of those at some point need roll bracing. And so I added this roll bracing section that is the blocking that keeps the edge member from rolling. And the length of that blocking, if we want it 24, that works easy in perpendicular. It's more work to do in the parallel. If we made that 16, you could get it to work fairly easily in the parallel with just 1 bay of blocking. so the general flow of this is the same as what we were looking at in option
Eric,
one. Yeah,
Tom, quick question. And it's only because of the numbers game, okay? If we're doing 16-inch on center framing and we're doing an 1.5 inch reduction or 3/4 of an inch reduction to offset the sheet so that in parallel framing, the sheathing on the floor is landing on, the actual distance from the outer to the inner, okay, is going to be extended, reduced at 3/4. So that's why we landed on the 13.
yep,
So with the half of the 1.5 inch, that in between the 3, the 13 puts us at 16, okay? Plus the thickness of the single joist is 1.5 inches. That puts us at 17.5 inches. I know that's a freaking odd number, believe me. But does that solve the issue of if we go to 17? Because is it not from fold to full, or is it outer edge to center line on the distance?
well, it's whatever we're defining. So Jeff makes a good point that you just pull the tape from the outside edge of the framing, and that's where you need to be. That's why if we said that was a minimum of 16, your 17 would work, right? And we're pulling the tape from dropping it on the edge of the floor, dragging it back. Oh, my joist is in the right spot. I just need to put one piece of blocking here and use the nailing pattern that I've got.
Which is why I'm saying on a standard block out, okay, we would be 15.25 inches center line out to our first joist and then 16 inches on center going out. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Right?
So-
So the 15.75 plus the 3/4, because we can still use half the member as our extension distance from the edge, correct? For our length. So that would be 16 inches.
Yeah.
So one thing I guess I would point out here is we're making the assumption that the framing reference point is starting where we're working from.
I don't disagree with that, Jeff.
My guess is it's probably rare. They're starting at the end of the house, working their way through. They're not going to be starting here. So whatever number you choose, you're not going to guarantee that you're not 2 bays. You could have that next joist isn't going to be necessarily 13 inches away. You're going to have the potential for that next joist to be 4 inches away. And you're going to need to block out that in the next one. So to me, it's somewhat arbitrary to try to figure this out based on how many joist bays that we're going to do and where the framing is going to land, because it's not going to be lined up.
I don't disagree with that at all. But on a lot of custom framed houses that I work in, they always work from that edge inward, and they always work from the house edge over when they design the floor layout systems. And I'm just going to lay this out so that a lot of people understand why I'm looking at this, and it's not the norm. Do not take it as a norm. A ton of the higher end homes do radiant floor heating. So they base their floor systems on the panelization of the radiant floor heating, like warm board and a couple others. Now, again, this is only a small percentage, but I know that for decades, we've always dealt with a double frame system where we're coming off the edge of the stair opening plus the edge of the home. So I understand that if we don't, but if we use the 16 inches as a number, Jeff, it will be a number that the framers understand to deal with and could alleviate things where they could back frame one way from the edge. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. I'm not saying it will be, but a 16-inch number or 17 and a half is a number that a lot of framers will understand. And that was my theory. I'll shut up.
All right, so if we go with 17 and a half or 16, I'm not sure where we're measuring to and from, but how long is the blocking?
Let's say let's say it's 16 men, right? Then 16 or 17 and a half, like, and measured from the edge, right? So measured from the edge, like, which it says here, right? A distance from the edge. That blocking is about, if it was 16, that blocking is about is 13 inches long. And so that's about as small as blocking is going to work without you like completely destroying it by putting all these nails in it anyway. So I think in order for the I think it's maybe okay to have the slightly more nails and the less dimension using the 16 there instead of 24. That's how I would see it. But
Okay, so down here, we're gonna go with 16. Correct?
measured yep, from the edge. Yep.
Okay. And up here, it's already stricken.
Right.
Okay, is everything else? Well, I'm gonna back up here, okay? I had a concern with the language here. And, this says shall be braced to resist rotation by roll bracing as described in 502.11.3 and aligned with the guard posts. So if we have the joists aligned with the guard posts, we don't need the blocking.
That's right.
Okay, so I added this language, which says by joists aligned with the guard post, with the post, or by.
Perfect. I must have deleted by joists by accident, Dave.
So,
Okay,
so.
all right.
I guess the only piece there is, does that imply that you don't need to do any fastening? Part of that roll bracing down there is the fastening prescription.
Good point.
Well, if the
So
joist
you
is
still-
aligned, well, so Jeff, if the joist is aligned, you just need the plywood nailing.
Yeah,
So-
exactly, but I mean, this could be read to say that you either do the joists or you do roll bracing in accordance with 502.11.3. With the deletion of the floor sheathing attachment from this section, somebody would just do joists with no special attachment.
Okay, so we need to include the floor sheathing. By joists aligned with the posts or by described in, okay. And then leave this. So this would go up here, okay? And then we would leave this in. It shall be fastened to the edge member with it. Yeah. Does that
Yeah,
work?
That's
Would that
right.
work?
I was being too trying to be too tricky there. All that language needs to stay. You're right.
Okay,
Jeff.
so this could move up here. Come on, get over there. Hang on a second. All right, and then all of this would be included. If I can undo that.
You just right click and say reject deletion. Reject change, yeah.
Does that do it? From the edge. I need to delete this portion right here. Right? Floor sheathing shall be continuous from minimum of 24-inch, 6 and shall be fastened to the edge member with a minimum. Okay, is that good?
Well, hang on.
By
The
joists aligned with the post or by roll bracing as described in and aligned with the guard post.
I know why I did. I know why I made the change the way it was. Sorry, this is going to get messy. I'm saying that when you look at 502.11.3, the roll bracing can be the joists. Because otherwise we're gonna, so the first thing is roll bracing shall be joists or blocking. And so that's why it said in the first piece, brace to resist rotation. I guess we're losing the alignment piece. What we're going to end up with is that we're going to say the same thing about the floor sheathing in two different locations.
Okay,
I suppose it's fine, but it's like that floor sheathing, that whole statement from floor sheathing to the end has to then be repeated in the roll bracing section, unfortunately.
okay, all right. So you've got the joists included here.
I was
Roll
trying to
bracing
do that,
shall
but
be
it-
joists or blocking. Okay,
Gentlemen, I'll let you work this out. I've got to jump. Good luck. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and are you going to have another call before?
yes,
before
we
the
will,
hearing?
Jeff. And I do have a question for you. Will you be at the hearings?
I don't know. I'm probably not going to be there, but there's some chance.
Okay, I do have another question. Just quick before you go, at least if you can't answer, please consider it prior to our next meeting. Can we put your name and company on this proposal? I'm going to ask that of everybody.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably not. I'm going to say I can't say that Weyerhaeuser is going to say, yeah, this should be a company with our name. So.
Okay, all right. Well, please give it some thought, and I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Take care.
Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, so I can just undo all of this, I think. Okay, are we back where we started? All right, do we have to change the number of nails here because it changes to 16?
Nope, the sheathing, so the sheathing nails are fine. The sheathing nails for this 44-inch tall thing is 12 nails.
Okay.
So we can capture all of the guard heights up to 44 with 12 10 pennies in the for the sheathing attachment. What's not called out here, the 16, that 500 number, the vertical load up or down where it says then 500 pounds,
Right.
that would be 750 pounds with 16 inches, or we could call out six 16 penny nails for the blocking connection as a minimum. I don't know which way we want to, most of the time, if it's not we're not saying a load that needs to be resisted in IRC. Most of the time, we're just saying use this many fasteners. So that piece that's highlighted there probably wants to just be 16 penny nails.
Okay, capable of resisting a load up or down, so we want to, we're gonna delete this. And what are we gonna add?
Joists or blocking shall have end connections with a minimum of 6 16 penny nails.
How many?
6.
Period. Okay,
Not wanting to get picky, but shouldn't that be written 6 SIX and 6 in parentheses to keep it consistent with the rest of the verbiage?
Yeah.
Sorry.
no, that's, yeah,
And I guess to nitpick to nitpick my own writing there, the joists are always going to have a hanger. Maybe that sentence shouldn't say joists or blocking. Maybe it should just say blocking shall have end connections. Because the joist doesn't necessarily need the uplift capacity there. It's the blocking that's got the problem. So it would just say blocking.
okay. All right, now I've got one other question here. We're talking about posts. And we've said that not all guards have posts. Is it possible for us to say something like point of connection or connection point? So wherever we have post, and I
Dave,
think
I don't
maybe,
know if that's gonna be a methodology you want to get into. As much as you know, I hate the word post. When you get into fasteners on each baluster, going baluster and step or baluster and landing, when you get into plates dropped in place, glass guards where they drop the U channel down and now you have fasteners every 8 to 12 inches or every 6 inches.
right.
But now you're getting into mounting points and you're adding just a solid wave of blocking across that whole area.
Yeah.
Leave it. As much as I hate the word post, it's a necessary evil here, I think, to get it through. If you try to simplify it that much, I think we're gonna get a lot of pushback. And I know I'm gonna have a fight after this gets in, keeping that attachment methodology out of the code in future proposals. But
Okay, so I'm just wondering, do we address hardening of this edge for systems without posts? Because we said we were going to have, if we had this blocking every so often, then, it doesn't matter where you put the posts. Have we addressed that here?
No, you contradicted it. By putting the blocking at the post, you what's the word? Counterdict. It doesn't work. The proper procedure should be at a prescribed distance and forget the post and forget the, don't not worry about it, because there's no known dimension for distance on a newel. There's no known dimension. So the roll factor has got to be, to keep the beam from rolling, has got to be prescribed so many feet, so many inches, whatever. You need a brace and then it's over.
Well, that's the
What
point too. That's the point too, because if you don't use the heavier member that's described in point 2, the blocking has to align with the connection.
Correct. The point 2 relieves us of that point period, correct, Eric?
That's right. That's right.
5 1/8 and up.
Yeah, and so in that one, we're just saying, that's why that one is there as at intervals of 48 inches. The 48 inches just controls rotation.
Right.
It's that,
This-
that's not even a
Answer
strength
my
thing.
question. That is the intent of the point 2, is to allow for a system that doesn't require alignment with the post.
That's right.
Okay,
Which is where we actually are, to have the stair builder open the floor system to put more bridging in. Now he assumes the liability for opening that floor system and adding that blocking. So we're back to square one.
Robert, you're incorrect. Because you're
Okay.
always responsible for verifying and making sure that the floor system has the guard installer, period. You're never alleviated from that. Okay? So whether it's there or not, whether the other people did their job or not, as the installer of the guard, your acceptance is the responsibility, period. You're supposed to be inspecting and verifying every project that you can mount to. And that's based in the code and legal law. So it doesn't matter. Okay, that's not going away. It's not disappearing. Okay, just by adding this in, it alleviates nothing like that. All this does is push to make sure that that blocking is going to be there to a minimum that's established to one of these 3 directives. And that'll minimize the guard installer's ability to verify which one was followed, so that they can design the guard in order to install it properly. That's it. That's all this is doing.
I don't know how the installer is going to verify that without ripping up a lot of plywood.
That's where the builder comes in, and that's where when you place it on the framing, okay, the builder now has to make sure the framing is there. And then
Correct.
getting a directive out of the builder, what framing methodology did you use, A, B, or C, or here 1, 2, 3, is a question that can be answered, more than likely. Okay, without it, you have no idea. Okay,
Robert, this is no different than handrail blocking, or blocking in the wall for the end of a guard. You can go out to the first model in the 100 home development and say, look, this is where the blocking has to go in every one of these units. Sure as shit, somebody, pardon my French, somebody is going to forget to put it in, or just say, there's a stud close enough, that's good enough, whatever the reason. The installer is going to put that nail through the wall and find out, or his fastener, and find out there's nothing there. What's he got to do? Whether it's the floor or the sheetrock, he's got to cut something out and put something in. So, or tell somebody to put something in, or go to the engineer, At that point, it's not him that hasn't done his job, but he's responsible. He can't attach to the air. It's no different than what we got right now. He's got to be responsible to know. So that brings up another question. Is there a way, and is that a point that people are going to argue? How are you going to know? How are you going to know? Well, I said, when that question came up to me, I said, well, gee, if you can't spot 12 nails in a small area on the floor, Yeah, but what about if the finished floor is down? You know, what if they covered it over? It's so, what if the sheet rock's on? You can't see, what if the ceilings, hey, there's too many what ifs. We've done a good job with this. And like we said with the post connection, you're not going to eradicate your individual responsibility to do your job, your part of the job well. So not in today's age of litigation anyway. You're never going to eliminate that.
Well, I kind of agree with you on that point. I'm just trying to limit the exposure for our stair builders. That's all.
Right. And I understand that. But every time you got to remember, if you want to put the onus on the contractor, you're saying, okay, I know you're my customer, but I want to screw you.
Yeah, right.
And you can't say that to the builder, especially
Yeah,
with code hearing.
You just got to do it real nice.
Yeah.
All in the delivery.
You got to make them want it.
Okay, so
All right, guys.
who wants to help write? Do you think that we've got this to a point where we can start to write a reason statement? So Tom and Eric, you've both had experience with reason statements. I would really appreciate your help on this. I would like to get a draft out to you guys, get your input and additions, and be prepared for our next meeting, which I think we could have 2 weeks from today. Tom and Eric, are you willing to review that and comment when I get it to you?
Yes.
Okay,
Dave,
Tom.
I don't have an issue. I don't want to create it. I have no problem editing it.
Okay, all right, super.
I got all those proposals that I'm still trying to write reason statements for, so.
Right, I know, I gotta, yeah,
And you wanting me to do the drawings, okay?
yeah. Well, are we agreed? Okay, so that's the other question.
I'm agreeing.
Do we
with
just
not doing
submit-
the one with the drawings?
Do we just submit the one that does not require drawings? And possibly have a drawing that we'll just use with our proposal just to help explain, and that drawing might not be referenced within the proposal, but might be picked up to be used in the commentary or one similar to it.
I would add the drawing, and I would add the drawing as it's being submitted as part of the proposal to clarify it more simply for the committee and those reviewing for voting, and for use possibly at the election of the ICC for the commentary. That way you're doing it based on for the commentary, and its use is put into the proposal that its direction is for the commentary, not for the actual code book. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I
Eric's
thought that
looking
was
up
what
in
I
the
was.
sky like,
I thought that's what I was saying. It would not be referenced within the proposal, but it would just be there for explanation.
yeah, but explain it in the reason statement.
That we're
it's
putting it in there for the commentary.
necessary. Correct,
Okay.
not
All right.
for the proposal. not
Yeah,
for the
that-
text.
The image is part of the reason statement,
Correct.
right? Yeah,
So we want it to go towards the commentary.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the
we can,
commentary follows the reason statement for more explanation.
yeah, we can specifically state that the drawings included for two purposes, to aid in understanding and the potential use in the commentary.
Correct.
Okay, so so the theory is if we just put the one in, if they feel that a drawing is needed, we could add that by public comment and change the proposal to reference it. Is that a good tactic? Anybody opposed to that tactic? Okay, then that's the way we'll go. Our next meeting will be January 4th. Hopefully, I will have had a draft and some comments, and I'll get it out to everybody for comment before the 4th, so everybody can see it. And hopefully, we will be
Dave,
in a position to just pull the trigger on the 4th.
make
Yes.
sure that none of the markup is in there, that it's a clean draft.
Yeah,
Just accept all changes.
Okay. Oh, you want to do that now?
Well, I would make a different, I would make a
New
copy.
copy so they
with
can't
those
see the
changes
edits.
In the new copy.
Mhm.
Keep this as a reference, just make it
Just
save
the one?
as. And then accept it.
That's not the one. Hang on a second.
Tom, are you wanting it so that they can't see the version history?
You don't want the history when you're working on it, because if you get further comments and then you turn the comments on, it's just gonna add. If you start with a fresh document.
Right.
without the comments in there, any new comments we get back between now and the 4th is all we're looking at from a clean point going forward.
Got you.
Right now, it's, excuse the expression, it's a giant mess to read and follow because of that.
Right.
It'll
I guess
just-
my concern is that when you go to turn this in for consideration, you want to make sure that the history isn't showing as well, like where you can go and
It
look.
doesn't matter, you're not gonna use this, you're gonna
Oh, okay,
copy the
okay.
text and
Okay.
put it in through the TPD access, and none of that's going to be there.
Okay, good.
It's strictly for our use only,
Okay,
and
great.
I would not go that way.
Okay.
So is
You
this where I
get
do
my,
that?
if
Show
you go to
markup?
show Markup, you see up above? Go up above where it says all markup,
Oh, remove.
click,
No.
no markup,
Okay.
boom. Clutter's gone. Copy that into a new document or save as, and then you click accept. You see on the right there where it says accept? Are you in a new document?
No, I'm going to.
Save it as a new document. Sorry, everybody. I get a little pushy.
doesn't bother me any. I'm good with it.
You're the
Save it on
same
the
way.
desktop, Dave. It don't- Tara,
Oh,
did you get the OBS information and did you understand it?
I did. Thank you so much.
Okay. It's not hard. It's very easy.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's a little, now go, once you show no markup, you're in a new document. No, just no markup, go to the right,
Except. Yeah.
accept,
Okay.
okay? And turn
Okay.
off,
Except all.
turn off the markup, all markup, turn it back to no.
No,
No markup. Okay.
Yeah.
Then click track changes. There, the down arrow, click it. Okay, that's good. All right, now go over to accept and click the down arrow. Down arrow. It's not the down arrow, Dave. There you go.
Oh.
Accept all changes. Stop. Would you go back there? Down further.
You got it.
Okay,
Here we go.
all right.
You're seeing a delayed thing. You gotta, you
Yeah,
gotta.
yeah.
You got
Just
already
like
done
too
laughing.
much altitude in the brain is what it is. You've been hiking too high.
No.
Yeah, but you're responding like, it's like the 3-second delay on.
Yeah, you BS, dumbass. Excuse my, all right.
Okay.
Well, that cleans it up a lot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're not
Yeah,
working
yeah.
with, if you need to go back and reference, good job on the math, Eric.
Oh, Tom, send me the, I know you're super busy. Send me the CAD drawing. I've got a staffer that wants to help with this stuff.
It's all yours.
And can take the drawing, this guard drawing.
Oh,
You
God
have it
bless
already.
you, Eric.
Didn't I copy it? Didn't I copy you on that?
But I think that you worked in it since you sent it to me the last time.
All right.
Yeah, I think you did
get
some
it.
stuff with the plans. I just want to make sure I'm looking at Clayton helped me with the deck details, and he said that he wants to help again if he can, and I think that that's probably going to help you out to get him
Oh,
to.
it is. I've got like 12 proposals that I'm preparing, and I've got 4 project people that are clients that are about ready to string me up by the local flagpole.
Not to mention your friends.
Hey, if I didn't have enemies, I wouldn't have friends.
All right, we'll see everybody on the 4th.